I
Yeah.
already had a deal and it was 2.5 times less valuation than the
Mm.
round that we've closed now. For me, it was a sign that Vova, you should stop here and not
Mm.
undervaluate what you are building. This is your like final warning.
Welcome to another episode of The Funded. We took a bit of a break over Christmas and New Year and sort of the start of New Year, but we're back. We have an amazing lineup of guests coming in, and today is Vova from Eesee. Vova, thank you so much for being here. We've monitored your progress on the fundraise, and it's been amazing to see you navigate this. So very grateful to have you on the podcast. Let's start with a quick introduction of the company of Eesee. What do you do, and how does it work?
Amazing, man. Amazing to be here. First of all, thanks so much for having me. And yep, happy to be here. I'm a CEO and founder of Eesee. But just a quick elevator pitch. We are gamified marketplace. Gamified marketplace for digital assets, tokens, tokenized real world assets. We're just gamifying the common trading approach. That's what we're doing.
Amazing. Okay, and can you give us a quick summary of the round? If you can mention, whatever you can share. Obviously, how much did you raise? What round was this? And then who are the lead investors, valuations, whatever you can share.
Sure. But we've raised seed round in April 2023. But then closer to October, started raising a private round, just the final round before the TGE. And it took us quite some time to gain stats, numbers, user acquisition channels, and all that to finally successfully finalize this funding round, the private. So basically, this announcement that went something like 15 days ago that we've finally just covered all rounds is about the private round. So in seed round, we've raised $1.1 million. In private round, we've raised $700,000 from VCs and something like 800,000, 850 from angels. Angels including KOLs, just wise individuals from the market, supporters, and all that stuff. In terms of names, the like. Don't want to say that lead investor because we started without lead investor, and only then we were joined by guys at 7x. Guys at 7x, they had, let's say, the biggest impact in terms of the amount that they've that they've backed us. So this private round was joined by the 7x Ventures, Momentum 6, the guys at Contango Digital Assets, Maven Capital, Meta Bros, and several KOLs, angels, and supporters. In terms of the KOLs and angels, some notable names like G-Money, Wiz, Capo, Dingaling, Zaneka, but the Chelsea investment director at Foresight Ventures, guys like Chris Donovan, the CEO at Near Foundation, and several other notable and I'd say super supportive people who backed us. And in terms of the seed round, the one that we've raised previously in April 2023, we were joined by guys at Daedalus Angels and our as well angels, the guys who previously backed the Open Network, Near Protocol, and other notable startups. This is like the all in the mix, but very quick rundown on those two rounds that we raised.
Awesome. I mean, it's super diverse round. I mean, that's an amazing mix of investors, and hopefully that gives you an incredible kind of a boost out of the gates when you launch. What was the instrument that you raised on? Was it a token, a safe, SAFT? What was the kind of ultimate instrument?
From the very beginning of the fundraising process, we chose to raise with SAFT. So basically, we raised with tokens. But in the process, but there were several investors that wanted to back us based on safe
Mm.
plus token warrant or something like this. But then we've decided to acquire value and benefits in tokens. So that's why we decided to raise via SAFT and tokens.
Okay, perfect. And was that so? That was the decision from the very beginning to raise on a SAFT. It was something that you decided before you raised any money. Then you kind of circulated through, sort of thinking through a safe and a token warrant, but stuck with the SAFT in the end.
Yep. We from the very beginning we decided that it will be super beneficial for our business model to have token implemented, native token and token, and basically that's why we decided to go with SAFT, because it would be, but in our understanding, it would be beneficial for company, for Eesee, and for our investors to acquire value in tokens.
Okay, and Vova, talk me through how you thought of the timing on the round. I mean, you had an amazing kind of a climb of users on the waiting list and people engaging. We saw you grow from sort of a lower number to sort of where you are now in the, I think, 75,000 or probably more by now. How did you decide the timing of the round in light of kind of the engagement that you were seeing and building that community?
I'd correct you a bit. At the moment, we have 700,000 users connected wallets.
Oh my God. Okay. Holy shit. All right. Well, I'm sorry.
But totally understand that not all of those guys are, let's say, real. Some of those guys can be botted, multi-ag farmers, and we can't go anywhere without those type of people in crypto. That's bread and butter of crypto. But we check the stats. We check the analytics, and at the moment we see that all those users who connected wallets, they have cumulated value of 71 plus million of assets that they hold on those wallets.
On those wallets. Wow.
Yes, on all those wallets.
Phenomenal.
We track stable coins, native coins, altcoins, and NFTs. I have it right here on my screen. So yeah, we can provide all the information and proof checks and all this stuff, because I like numbers. I think that numbers are always showing the real picture. As well, we see that the average wallet age is more than 336 days, which is super sustainable for the, let's say, average retail user. And as well, we see that over the last 30 days, all wallets have made more than 318,000 transactions worth more than $96 million in just over 30 days. So it's just some good numbers, and they show that those wallets are real active, and we've tapped into the active community. Answering your question. Basically, when we started raising seed round, we had just product. We had product, we had idea, we had team, we had strategy, how we're going to acquire all those users, but we didn't have any numbers. That's when we started raising the seed round. We've raised a bit of the seed round. Then we got connected with Daedalus. We got a bit of backing from Daedalus and a lot of support from Daedalus. But the thing is that at that moment in time, we didn't have any traction, didn't have any numbers, we had like a community of, let's say, 10,000 users in Twitter, something like 8,000 users in Discord. And then from that time, we started scaling super fast. And the best decision for us was to launch the testnet. We've launched incentivized testnet, and we were transparent with our community. We told them that, look, help us to test the product. It's a heavy consumer-centric, user-centric product. We want you to test it out. We have several fixes to be made. We have several bugs there and here and there. And we want you to test it out. If you will help us to test it out, if you will spread the word about it, if you will invite friends, we will give you airdrop. We didn't, we were not trying to make it somehow shady and speculative. We were transparent as we can be. And starting that moment in time, it exploded. In 24 hours of launching testnet, we had something like 70,000 wallets connected to the platform. So, and of course, showing all those numbers, even like up until today, when we are recording this, every day we are going to analytics, on-chain analytics tool. I can shout out Cookie 3. We're using Cookie 3, and those guys are super helpful. We are using the on-chain analytics tool, and we to every community member, investor, supporter, KOL, team member, everybody, all those stats are open online. So we can check them. We can check how the behavior changes. Those wallets spending anything and everything like this. And starting the moment when we started generating that kind of traction, it started resulting in a successful result with fundraising. We started gaining interest from VCs, interest from the angels, and this is where it all started being super successful for us.
So it shows how important that early traction and making that initial sort of wave in the market and getting people engaging and stuff like that, how important it is. And it also shows that investors do monitor for those things and are aware of what is getting interest, what is getting kind of attention from the audience. Cool. Okay. And how did you decide on the amount to raise? I mean, obviously you raised the earlier round and you raised the next round. How did you think about, was it based on, a runway that you were targeting, or what was the kind of the deciding factor behind how much you actually raised in the end?
I think that the idea that I'm going to tell now, it's not the popular idea, but this is how I think about the fundraise. It's always worth to raise more than you really need than to raise less than you really need. Because if you are raising more than you need, you are basically undervaluating what you are building. And if you are undervaluating what you are building, who will evaluate it as it has to be evaluated? So once the founder or the CEO or anybody who deals with investments in startup starts selling incredible amounts of token at lowered valuation, I think that this is a clear red flag. For us, what we have decided, we've seen the realistic runway, the realistic burn rate, monthly burn rate, and we've just multiplied it by 24 months. To make sure that we have a sustainable runway for 2 years, because for me 2 years is the period of time that startup needs really to get to the peak level, when it gets global attention and exposure and a lot of community exposure and all that stuff. So we raised exactly the right amount. How much money do we need to maintain the sustainable scaling for 2 years? It's like my biggest advice to anybody who will be raising, not to raise too much money, because then when the company valuation starts to grow, you will just feel sad for yourself for just selling it at lowered valuation, and this is not the best look even for investors, partners, and anybody.
Yeah, you got to be confident in your ability to execute and keep on building value and increasing the valuation, right? I think obviously there's multiple approaches to this. That certainly we've seen. Some people say that if you raise more, you have more shots on goal, because the first product isn't always the kind of the winning product, and if you're not able to kind of make a few iterations, then it also puts too much risk. But there's always a balance, of course. And Vova, how did you go about finding the initial investors, right? Obviously, as you mentioned, as you started to gain traction, you probably had an inflow of interest. But I saw you hustle in the beginning. Tell us a little bit about, were you already connected to investors? How did you go about? Was it cold outreach? How did you go about getting the initial investors and starting this kind of wave going?
It's a nice question, actually. So look, I'll start with something that didn't work out, at least for our side. For myself, cold outreach didn't work out. Any investors that I tried to call outreach, we don't have them on cap table now. That means it didn't work out. So the cold outreach, I tried email outreach, I tried those on the website forms that those VCs have. Nothing worked out. Even let's say, I have decent the connection network on LinkedIn. I even tried to connect with different VCs on LinkedIn, saying how we are cool and why they should invest in us. It didn't work out. Things that worked out with, let's say, with investors who not only say that they invest in founders, but they really invest in founders. Personal connection worked out. When somebody from the inner circle of those investors introduce, and then those investors see yourself. This is how it worked out with Daedalus. Basically, we worked with the marketing agency. The marketing agency introduced us to one of members of Daedalus Angels. We jumped on a call. we jumped on a call once, we've jumped on a call twice, discussed initially not about the product, because it was not a lot to discuss about the product, because we didn't have a lot of traction. Discussed about my background, discussed about the team, discussed about why am I the real founder to make this thing work out. And like that Los Angeles, they've invested in founder. A lot of VCs with whom I've just jumped on a call, they've told me that, look, we are investing in founders, we're investing in teams. But then it turned out that those guys were those ones who returned back to us when we had those announcements. So they are investing in those startups that were backed by different VCs. So it doesn't really correlate to statement that they invest in founders. So the like real opportunity to find investor, like a true investor who invests in founders, is to get connected directly. Establish connection, establish communication with somebody who is directly connected to any VC. Show why you are the real one. Show why your team is real ones, and then it will work out 100%. If you're the real one, if the team is real one once, and if the valuation is proper, it will work out. Then it comes to the step number 2. Those VCs who invest when you have traction. Those VCs when you it gets easier. When the product gets real traction, it gets easier, because then I even found myself in a place when I was just browsing those chats in Telegram, and I've started seeing those VCs about whom I've heard texting, who can connect me to Eesee, who can connect us to Eesee. And this is quite a nice feeling, because you see that it's not you who try to get their connections, but it's them who try to get connections to the startup. This is for any founder. I think that this is like one of the best feelings. So cold outreach for us didn't work out. Personal connections and tractions, 2 main things that worked out perfectly well.
Yeah, I mean, on the cold outreach, I kind of, people always say, if you want to, VCs typically will tell you that if you want to talk to them, you need to find a personal connection. I think as much as that sounds kind of pompous in a way, or arrogant or whatever, the reality is that, I mean, having been a VC for a number of years, obviously in my career, the cold outreach, you just get so much stuff coming your way. And typically the quality of it is so low that it's very difficult to kind of sieve out what is worth looking at and what isn't. And that's why a lot of VCs tend to kind of ignore a lot of the inbound. And if it comes from sort of their network, that's a natural filter, and they would obviously pay attention, which is frustrating, because why shouldn't companies be able to reach directly out to VCs? There's a lot of good stuff that gets lost, obviously, in this weird process of having to find a personal connection and all of that kind of stuff. Cool. Okay, and you went through a little bit of a conversation around working with an accelerator. Can you talk us through kind of what happened there? What was the ultimate outcome of the conversations and things like that?
But we at one moment in time, we decided that probably it will be cool for us to have an accelerator. But just basically, as we are building a consumer-centric product, user-centric product, B2C, and it's always good to have somebody who gives you support, who been through the process of building a consumer-centric, user-centric product. We went to try to one accelerator. We went to try to second accelerator. We even I won't mention any names here. So, but just in terms of the accelerator, we've been accepted to the, I'd say, biggest of accelerators here in crypto. But then just couple things didn't work out here and there because of evaluations, because of different things. It didn't work out. But then I just realized that I always think like this: if it hasn't been done, it's for best, it's for better. Because that deal that I signed, I already had a deal, I signed it, and it was 2.5 times less valuation than the round that we've closed now. And it was deal for more than $200,000. So basically, for me, it was maybe it was a sign that, Vova, you should stop here and not undervaluate what you are building. this is your like final warning. I as my final warning, and then starting that moment in time, we didn't give anybody any free tokens, any free allocations, anything. Just our advisors, supporters, people who support us, they got advisory allocation, the possibility to invest in our project. Never I'd advise somebody to give free tokens, because even for smart advisors, why would you be working with somebody who treats their baby, their startup, like this, to give out free tokens, to give out free allocations and stuff like this? So this was my not into deep experience of working with accelerators, but at the same time, I hear a lot of cool stories about accelerators from different founders. So maybe so one more thing is that maybe we were in a bit older stage than the startup that needs an accelerator, because we already had a team, we already had a strategy, we already had like a not only strategy in place, but as well the execution in place. So maybe that's just the case why we didn't need the accelerator. But yeah, it happened like
Well,
this.
you know my view. We spoke back then, and I told you my view of the accelerator and whatnot. So I'm kind of secretly obviously very happy that you didn't end up doing it. But I understand the process would have been pretty intense to make a decision and walk away on kind of the offering. So what happened in the end? Did the round or the amount that you were looking to raise, did you get oversubscribed, undersubscribed? How did it work out based on what you wanted to raise, what you ended up raising? You mentioned that there's some reshuffling going on now, so can you talk us through this a little bit?
Sure. So look, but when the process starts to scale that fast as it scaled with us, uh, we found ourselves oversubscribed in 4 days. Literally 4 days, and we found ourselves oversubscribed. So then I got a lot of inbox messages, fit 25K allocation, fit 10K allocation, and especially from those guys with whom I've already been talking, who have been doing the in-deep due diligence process on team and everything like this. But the only thing that was needed is any other VCs who would back us. This is quite strange process as well. I find it strange. I think that a lot of founders find it strange as well, and like even several VCs with whom I've been talking, they even find this process strange when the due diligence process gets like 3 months, and then the final stage for the due diligence process is that you found the VC, and then everybody wants to follow up. So this is basically like, I think it's quite a strange process. But then coming back to the question, we found ourselves oversubscribed, and then we even needed to make several refunds. So this is the hardest part, really. But without over-evaluating, just this is the hardest part, to get someone's money into good product. It's way easier than to give that money back, because then I started like basically that people to whom you are making even partial refunds, they think that you're a bad guy.
Of course they do. Of course they do.
I started hearing that, look, it's basically like why are you doing this? It's double standards and all that stuff. But I think that for founders and for CEOs and for the core team of the product, they need to do anything what is good for the product. But like, I think that even investors, smart investors, in the very end, they understand it. They understand that, of course, emotions may take power and all this stuff, but like true founders, they always do what is best for their baby, for their startup. So I think that this is just reasonable. And the thing is that we've ended up doing something like 160,000 refunds to a
Wow.
lot to a lot of guys, and we've never made a full refund. That's the main thing. Even to those guys who were not really supportive and who were just silent for a lot of time, we just made a small partial refund. We didn't
Yeah.
make full refunds because I think that this shows your approach, this shows your behavior, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't want to just remain bad communication or bad relationships with anybody. We're all like, it's a small community here. Everybody is building, so I want to stay just true. I want to stay
Mm-hmm.
friend with everybody, but we ended up making several partial refunds. And to be honest with you, this was hard. This was hard. This was
Yeah.
nervous, and just yeah. This is what if I'd make top three of hardest things that happened on this fundraising journey, I'd rate it first or second place. Definitely.
Well, it's good that you say that, because a lot of founders tend to think that being oversubscribed is a good problem to have, when actually
Yeah.
it is quite a nerve-wracking situation, and even more so in your case, having to actually, there's one thing, turning people away before they've kind of come into the round. It's a different thing, having to actually refund them. How did you decide on who to refund? Like, what was the kind of the process, the expectation that you kind of worked on? Because I think the most important thing is to kind of have a system and really go by the system rather than go by gut or emotion or whatever the case may be. Can you talk us through that?
Of course. So look, first of all, repeat. It's I think that for a startup that really like decided to build a product and go like fundamental, full-time, long journey, nothing can be worse than just get more money than you needed. It's like
Mm,
for me, when we decided to raise exactly this amount of money, we decided that's hard
mm-hmm,
stop. Here is hard
mm-hmm,
stop, and just this was my decision as a founder, as a CEO. So basically, we didn't think twice about how we decided to make refunds. Look, just two words: value add. We
mm-hmm,
decided on value add. We decided on value add on those guys who were really supportive, or those guys who just were willing to look like they're supportive. It's good that all investors that we have now on the cap table are supportive, are like real, I won't say that real value add to all of investors, but at least I can now come to every investor and ask an advice. And I know that a lot of investors can give me valuable advices, valuable support. Some of the investors with whom we are dealing now, I treat them even like, won't say it to make it like, to sound it too loud, but some of those investors are becoming like a co-founders, basically,
mm,
because they are super supportive. And we decided with just in terms of the refunds, we decided on the value add. Value add, the amount of the time that we spent together on building Eesee, the amount of connections or anything that has been made. So, but in the end, we remained good relationships with everybody. Everybody understood everything. So that's one more advice to any founder who will be facing the thing of the oversubscribed situation. But don't be scared to be fully transparent. I always say that transparency is key. And even if somebody, I faced this situation when when emotions took power and people started saying that, look, but just double standards and here and there. But then the same people came back to us and they said, look, we appreciate your approach. We now fully understand that with this level of transparency and with this level of commitment to the product, uh, it will go far and it will go long. So basically, don't be scared to just show transparency to people, to talk. Everybody is a human. Everybody, if they are able to understand, they will understand. If they are not able
mm.
to understand, this is the one more thing where you can think about even more refund.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, let's talk about how can an investor be value adds? Like, what are the areas that you as a startup founder would have needed the most help, and you were impressed with the help that you got?
First of all, the easiest thing is connections.
Mm-hmm,
So when you are on our stage, we are going strong and hard into partnerships now. Partnerships with the layers, partnerships with different communities, different projects, different like, but just partnerships as it is. And what's in investors with strong portfolio is always a good value add. because let's say that they can connect you to those startups. It will be, if you're building something cool, it will be a mutually beneficial partnership. So nobody will say ever no, because if you're exchanging community, if you're exchanging audience, it will always be a win-win situation for both of them, and win situation for investor, of course, because they are making this, they're establishing this connection, and it always, when the community is active from both sides, it's always a win-win situation. So first thing is connections. I won't say that some connections to, let's say, market makers or launchpads or anything like this is the biggest value add, because when the market is active, those guys are approaching good projects themselves. So you will always be able to find a market maker. You will always be able to find a launchpad. There is zero problem to find those guys in the market when the market is active. But to get in touch with some projects that are being super active and they are showing good traction and momentum, this starts getting harder and harder if those projects are keep growing. So for us, one of the biggest value adds would be in connections. Second thing is that just advice, support on anything, support on the launch strategy, support on the leadership aspect, support on just on some basic stuff that looks basic, but it's always possible to make mistakes even on basic stuff. And if you are not scared to ask advice or feedback from your investor, they've seen hundreds startups that made it and didn't make it, and basically they can just, the easiest thing that they can give you is give you advice like a playbook. Look, these guys, they've made it like this, it didn't work out. These guys, they've made it like this, but with a little twist, and it worked out. And then well, I've never seen that investors pushed to make the decision, pushed to make to say that, look, you have to do it like this, like we've told you. It's always up to you. You just gather all the information, gather all advice, and then you make your final solution. So final solution, final decision. So basically, these are connections, feedback, support, just normal human relationships. Those things are super big value add, because we have some investors in the cap table with whom we're like friends now. Just I can text them, I can ask anything, and they will definitely support, even if they will think that, look, it's a kind of stupid question. They will never tell me that this question is stupid. They will always answer like nothing is happening, like everything is good. And that's why I really care about the human relationships.
No, that makes sense. I think, yeah, the best way to give advice in a sense is just to tell a story that is kind of related and let the founder take their own kind of conclusions out of the story. When you kind of describe what a portfolio company of yours or a friend may have had a situation, and then what they did and what the result was, then the founder can kind of decide whether they suits them or not, much more than kind of direct advice. Oh, you should do this. Because it always also feels confrontational. If you say, oh, you should do this, and then you end up not doing it, then you kind of feel like, you've kind of gone against the advice. While if they just tell you a story, then it actually really makes it much easier for you to just take whatever is valuable for you and execute on it. So who are the most helpful people in the round? I'm kind of wondering of a split. Would you say that there's a distinctive kind of a visibility of angels being more helpful, VCs being more helpful? Obviously, feel free to call out any particular VCs or angels that you thought were super helpful.
So look, I'll start with in terms of the seed round, but the Daedalus angels. So those guys believed when we didn't have anything, and up until today, I know that I can text Luca, Nemo, I can text those guys, and even not about, let's say, not about the fundraising, not about connections, just about just any feedback, any opinion, or anything like this. I frequently text Luca, and he's always super supportive. I think he treats me like a friend now. So yeah, this is a cool thing that I faced in terms of the seed, and it's always harder to support somebody before those numbers, before success. Even the establishing connections with somebody can become tricky, and I totally understand it, because look, but the product is not launched yet. You don't know the capability of the founder. You don't know the capability of the team. You don't know how it will work out and if it will work out. And of course, it's easier to establish those connections when we have a lot of numbers and hundreds, thousands of wallets connected, and when the whole crypto Twitter is tagging Eesee and all that stuff. But that's why I really value our connection with Daedalus. And up until today, I know that even, let's say, if something bad happens, I know that it won't happen, but if something bad happens, I can always reach out and I'll get support. Second, the thing is that coming to the private round, this round, I'd mentioned several ones. First of all, for me, it was super helpful, the Levenger Young, the investment director at 7X Ventures. But he as well, he joined when we didn't have that much hype around us, and when we were not oversubscribed. But just he really liked the product idea. He really liked the product idea, and up until today, even let's say 1 hour before the podcast, we've been texting with each other, and he always suggests, he always supports, he always helps to just establish connections and connect dots in the background. So he is super helpful. Then two more partners who I can highlight is Maven Capital and MetaBros. Maven Capital, not Maven 11. I'm not connected to Maven 11. It's different. It's like it's just the wording with Maven, and it's a
Yeah.
bit thing sometimes. But yeah, Maven Capital, Murtaza, the guy who he really believed, and he supported with a lot of KOL connections, and as well with the MetaBros guys who help us to, let's say, I don't like the word incubate, but they are helping with incubating, with establishing connections, with establishing social media presence. I'll call it like this. So those guys, they're super helpful as well. Murtaza, the Maven Capital guys, and the for MetaBros, I treat them as like, won't say co-founders, but as at least as a part of the core team, because those guys, they don't ask for anything. They all just seamlessly support. Seamlessly support, and always when I connect to someone who is the mutual connection of myself and those guys, they always say, "Oh, look, those guys spoke really highly about you," and I'm like, that's nice thing to have. That's a good thing to have when you have some people like this. I can even, let's say, yesterday I've texted those guys at 4 a.m. my time. It was something like 2 a.m. their time. Immediately answered. Immediately. It shows that I can rely on those guys, even if something not too good happened. Because when everything good is happening, everybody would love to support. When something tricky happens, this is where those real ones show their faces. So basically, this is like, I can call out a lot of angels like Chelsea from Foresight Ventures. She's super nice as well. She's super helpful as well to us. Then some of our KOLs, I can mention a lot from them. They are constantly super supportive with all our announcements and updates. They always say that, look, Vova, you have that transparent and clear communication. We appreciate it. So Capo and Wiz, super two helpful guys. They are super big in terms of crypto Twitter. They are super big in terms of influence. Probably they don't even need somebody like us and somebody like our project, but they are super supportive. Like everything in terms of advice, in terms of like connection to anybody from the crypto Twitter space or projects, just support. It's like, it's always cool to see that this is just happening as it is. So some of those KOLs and influencers, if we have a list of 60 people who backed us, so if I didn't mention those guys, it doesn't mean that I don't value them as I value those guys. But with those guys about whom I've mentioned, we just are in constant connection, 24/7. One more guy who I will mention is Charles, Rare Stone Capital. Super helpful guy as well. We are based here in Dubai, and he's like that type of the guy who is like, look, I'm here with this centralized exchange leaderboard and all this stuff. You want to come in to hang out, I'll connect you. So it's like, it's natural. Even when I don't ask for support, that guy thinks about us, thinks about myself. This is something that is really cool. So just yeah, in a nutshell, I see that it's if you have a good intuition, if you have a good feeling about people, and I think I have a good feeling about people, you will surround yourself by real supporters, by someone who can support you. About the second part that you mentioned, who were not that supportive. I won't say names, but we don't, at the moment, we don't have on the cap table guys who were not supportive. We refunded them. But as well, in terms of like outlining some bad things that happened on the fundraise, I've seen a lot of guys who were shamelessly knocking in DMs saying that, look, can you squeeze us in $100,000, 50,000? Even let's say some guys asked, can you please allow us to join on 2.5 thousand just to be on your cap table? And those were the same guys who just ignored my messages, didn't even sometimes show up on calls. This is the type of behavior that I was facing. In like the peak of my fundraising journey, I've had something like 12 calls scheduled per day, 12, 14 sometimes. And even sometimes I faced this stuff when guys didn't show up. And then texted, look, we had the overlapping, let's just discuss further down the line. And of course, you see there like, why? Why is this happening? Of course, it's not the best thing to face, but those guys are always the first ones who will knock in your DMs once they will see some of the influential angel or KOL texting about your success, texting about your success story. That's the reality.
Well, it's almost like a karma, right? It's a natural punishment. I mean, if you're gonna be like that, then ultimately, you're gonna get the karma payback. Cool. And what was the legal process like for you? Did you draft up the documents with your legal counsel? Did one of the VCs provide the documents? Did you sort of, can you talk us through that a little bit?
Before starting why I've done it like this, the background, because I've already had two startups, two successful ones. I've already done two exits, not that big exits, like an super successful multi-million-dollar exit, but I've had two exits, one from the educational technology startup, second one from medical technology. We've been doing hardware, working with some companies like Porsche, SoftBank infrastructure, European banks, just like I've had some experience. So what I've taught from those experiences, that you have to handle all the legal stuff by yourself. You just, for me, it even looks funny when you come to investor and say that, look, can you help us to make this legal process? It's like they're giving you money, they're supporting, but don't make them think that you will ask their support on every single step. Why are you even the founder if you can't settle some minor stuffs yourself? So basically, we had it done. I found the company. I found I've asked several founders who are my friends how to make the cool soft, like the real one, the super legit, and so it's not only covering the investor side, but as well covering the project side. I think that there should always be a balance in legal documentation. So basically, before starting the seed round, before gathering any money, we always had everything prepared. We had prepared the SAFT, we had prepared the company, we've incorporated in the BVI. So basically, it's not a hard process. It requires a bit of time and consistency, but it's not a hard process. It's super easy, and as well, yeah, I think it's definitely doable.
Perfect. Okay, and what would you say were surprises for you throughout this process? What did you not expect that was like a complete sort of a shock when it happened?
Look, the complete shock for me was this. I'd call it the testimony that the thesis that VCs say that, look, we invest in founders, but they only invest when they see hype going on. This is, I don't know why is it happening. I still don't understand why is it happening like this. Of course, like in the background, I understand, but it looks strange for me. And even sometimes in those group chats, I see that guys are putting like, we are a VC, 100,000 million VC plus portfolio of, let's say, 56 companies and stuff like this. This is, we invest with tier one VCs. Strange stuff, completely. I won't say that it's like a shock, but it's something strange and something that you get to see. Just I haven't seen it in the traditional startups. This stuff happened.
I mean, Vova, I can offer a little bit of an explanation on people that on why the round comes together once there's a lead a little bit more, and why are people willing to commit a bit more. And there's definitely an element of people that just want to see a big name because they think the asset will perform if there's a big name involved. The correlation there is very, very weak. The thing that I would say though is that there are a lot of shitty funds out there, right? And the issue is that I don't care about following a kind of a tier one name or whatever as an investor, but I care about following a shitty fund because I've seen a lot of funds, bad funds, turn good companies into the wrong direction, and I think that's really the risk that experienced investors are trying to avoid. I've seen it in traditional finance where you've got funds which back regular companies. I'm not talking about crypto, SaaS companies, this, and get them to focus on the absolutely wrong thing, right? And the company goes ultimately nowhere or doesn't perform as well as it could perform because they focused on the wrong thing, because they followed the advice of their lead investor. We see that in crypto as well. Getting them sort of, the influence that they have as a lead investor, obviously, having influence over the token launch, the mechanism, where is the value accrued, especially if it's an equity round versus a token round. The lead investor has quite a lot of influence in certain circumstances. So I think for me, it's not necessarily FOMOing behind the big name, but it's actually avoiding investing behind the shitty fund, right? And when you've been investing in the space for certainly as long as I have, you know who the shitty funds are. They're well known, and so I think that's kind of, and I'm just saying that in kind of a bit of an explanation of why that dynamic does tend to happen, and why I understand it sometimes. But yeah, cool. Okay. I guess the next question I have, and actually we've only got two other things to cover. What would you do differently next time?
I wouldn't outreach until I have numbers. I think
Okay.
that I have a brother, my my little brother. He is my twin, and we are always he's doing his separate stuff, but we are always discussing. And he asked me this question. He asked like, "Look, you fundraised, you've closed it all. What is the one thing that if you would have to do this once again, what would you do differently?" I won't spend too much time on cold outreach, on those LinkedIn messages, on those forms on the websites. I'd completely focus on the process and traction. That's the thing when it started to work out. And I think that if you are a founder that is in the process of hectically outreaching those VCs, 90% that it will not work out. Yeah, I see it, and I've talked with founders. I've talked even like, if the Bitcoin would hit right now, let's say 70,000, maybe it would work out. The cold outreach maybe would work out because people will start spraying and praying. But in the normal conditions, in the normal market, focus on the traction. I'd focus even more on the traction with if I wouldn't spend that much time on calls with different PCs, I wouldn't I think that we would gather that traction faster. We would gather the traction faster. And right now, I think that we would have this podcast recording, let's say 1 month ago. But yeah, but the thing that I wouldn't miss focus on the cold outreach, on outreaching hectically in the LinkedIn and all that stuff. Your VC is going to find you once you will have the traction. This is the thing that I'll definitely do differently, and what I'm now advising to do any other founder.
Got it. Well, you've actually answered my next question, because my next question was, in fact, what would be your advice to people considering their fundraise? So this is pretty much answering the question. So, Vova, thank you so much for your time. I think this has been super insightful, really cool. Where can people find you if they wanna connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
But first of all, thank you so much. It's always cool to speak with somebody who is deep inside the game, so it's always a pleasure. So the where people can find me, LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm now pushing harder in terms of the personal brand. I'm always building with my face here. I'm fully doxed. You can't be more doxed than I am, and well, I'm building my personal brand on Twitter. I'm building my personal brand on those interviews, AMA spaces, and all that stuff. I think that I can tell a lot about background, traction, vision, or some stuff like this. So yeah, I'm always answering any DMs. I'm always answering any suggestions or advices that are needed for two different founders. So yeah, if somebody would want to reach out to me, they can definitely do this on Twitter or my LinkedIn.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.